Good afternoon, friends. Back in January of 2021, I made a video that continues to be one of my most popular videos to date. In that video, I made breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 7 days, so that's 21 meals, and I spent $21 total for the ingredients for those meals. So the average cost was $1 per meal. I'm doing something similar in this video, but instead of creating a plan for one person, I'll be creating meals for 2 people. So that's 42 individual servings, and I spent $42 total at the grocery store. Before I show you the meals that I made with this $42 budget, I'm gonna take you along with me in store and show you my shopping process. So let's go. I have my $42 ready and I'm here at Aldi. I'm gonna use a few ingredients that I already have at home, but I'm gonna try to keep that to a minimum, so everything else that I'll need for this challenge I'll be purchasing today. When I walked into Aldi, I saw that they had rearranged the store and now the produce is at the front of the store instead of the back. The first thing that I'm picking up today is a 10-pound bag of potatoes priced at $4.39. This is a great deal and beats Walmart's price by $1.88. Next, I'm picking up this small 6-ounce bag of shredded Parmesan cheese priced at $2.15. I'm going to pick up a couple more things in the cheese aisle. This 8-ounce block of mild cheddar cheese priced at $1.99 and a 1-pound bag of shredded mozzarella cheese priced at $2.99. Next on my list is this 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes priced at $1.19. I'm also going to grab a small 8-ounce can of tomato sauce priced at just 44 cents. I love being able to find things that are still really cheap. However, I believe this can used to be just $0.25. Walmart used to have cheaper chicken broth, but now Aldi does. I'm grabbing 2 of these big 48-ounce cartons priced at $1.89 each. Aldi beats Walmart's price on milk by just a penny, so I'm going to grab a half a gallon of whole milk here for $1.96. This week, Aldi is having a great sale on bacon. This 1-pound package is $3.99. And with this, I've spent over half of my budget. Everything in my cart now totals $22.88. The last thing that I'm picking up here at Aldi is a carton of a dozen eggs priced at $1.92. And of course, I gotta check to make sure that none of them are cracked. After I check out here, I'm gonna head down the street to Walmart to pick up the rest of the things that I need. Luckily, these stores are less than a mile apart, and Walmart is actually on my way home, so it's no hassle to stop there too. Here's my receipt. Everything rang up correctly, and my total was $24.80, which means that I have $17.20 left to spend at Walmart. As you can tell from that big bag of potatoes, we're going to be eating a lot of them this week. Potatoes are high in vitamin C, B6, and potassium, among other nutrients. The first thing that I want to pick up here at Walmart is a 1-pound bag of carrots, but unfortunately my store is out of them. The 1-pound bag of baby carrots is the same price, so I'm going to pick that up instead. And on the bright side, at least I don't have to peel these carrots. They're priced at 98 cents. Also in this section, I'm going to pick up a bunch of celery priced at $1.68. My next stop is the frozen section, and I'm grabbing 2 12-ounce bags of frozen broccoli florets. These are priced at 98 cents each, so the 2 of them together total $1.96. Next, I'm going to pick up this 10-ounce bag of chopped onions. It's priced at $1.38. I'm going to be using these onions for 3 different recipes, and this should be enough. By weight, this is slightly more expensive than bulk onions. Next, I'm picking up these packets of instant yeast. It's priced at 86 cents. Also, next to the yeast is the flour, and I'm going to grab a big 10-pound bag. This bag is priced at $3.64. Next on my list is a pint of heavy whipping cream priced at $2.98. My total spent so far is $38.28, which means that I just have $3.72 left in my budget. I'm going to use $1.16 of that to purchase this 8-ounce container of sour cream. I'm also grabbing a pound of margarine priced at $1.48. It seems like just last year that this was only $1. I now have just $1.08 left to spend. I'm going to grab this 2-ounce package of honey ham priced at 80 cents. I have 28 cents left to spend. I could just be under budget, but instead I decide to grab a banana. They're priced at 50 cents per pound, and I know that this is probably less than half a pound, so I don't even weigh it. We'll see if I'm right about that at the register. Of course, the first thing that I scan is the banana, and it's only 23 cents, which leaves me 5 cents under budget. Before I head home, I have one more stop left. I'm over here at my mom's house in her garden, and I am gonna get some fresh basil to go along with my meals this week. She just offered me some lettuce, so of course I'm gonna take it. So here's my haul from my mom's house: the fresh basil, the lettuce, and some tomatoes to make a salad. I'm back home, and this is everything that I picked up today between Aldi, Walmart, and my mom's garden. In total, I spent $41.95. I got a lot of food, and I think that I'll be able to make some great meals. So let's get cooking. For breakfast on days 1 through 4, we're gonna have biscuits and eggs. I'm gonna use this recipe from the Betty Crocker cookbook, the baking powder biscuits. The first day, we'll also have half of this banana each. I have my oven preheating to 450 degrees, and I'm gonna start by measuring out my dry ingredients: 2 cups of flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, and then also a teaspoon of salt. I've mixed my dry ingredients up, and now I'm gonna cut in my margarine. The recipe calls for 1/4 of a cup of shortening, but I'm gonna substitute 1/4 of a cup of margarine instead. Now I'm using this tool to cut in that margarine. I don't have any chunks left. It is all completely cut in, so I'm gonna add my milk. I have 3/4 of a cup of milk. I'm gonna add almost all of it and then see where I stand. I've mixed it up, and I will need that entire cup of milk. I've mixed all of my ingredients together, and now I have a dough ball. I'm gonna put some flour on my clean countertop to knead this. My cookbook says to knead it about 20 to 25 times. Now that I've kneaded it, I'm gonna roll it out to 1/2 inch thickness. I have it rolled out, and now I'm gonna start cutting. I got 4 biscuits from the first rollout. I got 2 biscuits from the next rollout, 1 more biscuit, and then I think I can make 1 tiny biscuit with this remainder. It ended up making a smaller but not too small biscuit. So I have 8 biscuits. I'm gonna stick this in the oven. And here's the biscuits out of the oven. They turned out well, except for the small lumpy one. Breakfast on day 1 is a biscuit along with scrambled eggs, and I'm gonna put a little honey on each one. We're also gonna have 1/2 a banana. But since we only have 1 banana, we'll only get 1/2 of a banana on one day. For breakfast on days 2 through 4, we're gonna have scrambled eggs again along with biscuits, but instead of honey, I use this jelly, but you can use whatever you have on hand: jam, jelly, honey, molasses, even the margarine. If you wanna just use that, you could put the eggs on the biscuit and make a little breakfast sandwich. I wanna show you all an alternative to biscuits for breakfast on day 4. This requires just a few more ingredients than what we use for biscuits: vanilla extract, an egg, and sugar, which is what's in that little dish. First, I'm gonna start off by sifting all of my dry ingredients. This recipe calls for 1.5 cups of flour. I never think sifting is necessary until I do it and I see those little hard pieces at the end. Next, it calls for 3.5 teaspoons of baking powder, but I know that that means 1 tablespoon and 1/2 teaspoon. Then 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. I'm not gonna sift the salt. It is just 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which is basically a pinch. Okay, I'm gonna stir these ingredients and then add in my wet ingredients. So I'm gonna add in 1 1/4 cups of milk, 3 tablespoons of melted butter, 1 beaten egg, oh, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I got a little extra splash in there. Now I'm gonna let this batter rest for a few minutes and let that baking powder do its magic. I've heated my pan up on medium-high heat and greased it with some of that margarine. Now I'm using my 1/4 measuring cup to put the batter in the pan. You'll know that it's time to turn when you start seeing little bubbles pop up. I'm not the best when it comes to making pancakes, but they still turned out well. We had syrup at home, so we did top these with syrup, but if you don't have syrup, you can also use jam, jelly, or even peanut butter. For breakfast on days 5 and 6, we're gonna have fried potatoes and bacon, and I'm gonna make these fried potatoes in my air fryer just to make things a little bit faster and easier for myself. You can hear my bacon sizzling in the background. I cut up my potatoes, I sprayed them with olive oil. I bought this container a while ago and I just keep refilling it because it is so easy to spray things when you're going to air fry them. And then I sprinkle it all with salt. I'm gonna stick it in my air fryer at 400 for 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna turn them and do another 5 minutes. And this is how breakfast turned out. I love fried potatoes and I love crispy bacon, so you won't hear any complaints from me. For breakfast on day 7, I'm gonna make hash browns and bacon. While my bacon is cooking in the background, I'm gonna shred up my potatoes. You can see that it makes little tiny strips. I shredded the potatoes over a paper towel. I'm gonna use another paper towel to try to get some more moisture out. I'm just frying these hash browns in some oil in my pan. And here is breakfast on day 7, some crispy hash browns and a slice of bacon, and I just seasoned the hash browns with salt and pepper. I remembered that I had eggs left, so I decided to add them to this meal. This morning, I'm gonna mix up dough and let it rise throughout the day. This is a very simple rustic bread recipe, and I have made it a couple times before on my channel. It's just a favorite of mine because it's so easy and doesn't require kneading. I'm starting off with 3 cups of water that is about 100 degrees. Now I'm gonna add in these 2 packets of instant yeast. Now I'm gonna add in 1.5 tablespoons of salt. Now I'm gonna stir in 6.5 cups of flour. I added all of the flour to the bowl, counting the cups out loud as I went so that I didn't forget how many cups I had already added. And now I'm gonna mix this up until there are no dry patches. I mixed the dough all up. You can see that it's still pretty loose. What I'm gonna do now is take a dishcloth and lay it over the bowl and let it rise on my countertop for at least 5 hours. It's been about 6 hours and the dough has risen a lot. I'm gonna take this out of here and divide it into 4 pieces. I'm gonna save 3 of these pieces in the fridge to make later. For right now, I'll just be making 1 small loaf. What I'm gonna do is just form it into a small loaf, and I'm gonna slash it across the top 3 times. I have my oven preheated to 450 degrees. I'm going to be baking this bread in my Dutch oven, but before I do that, I'm also going to preheat the Dutch oven, so I'm gonna stick it in there for 30 minutes. That little loaf rose a little bit more, you can see here, and now I'm gonna take this parchment paper and stick it in my Dutch oven. So I stuck it here in my Dutch oven. I'm gonna put the lid on and cook it for 30 minutes. I just pulled it out of the oven. I'm gonna stick it back in for 5 more minutes, uncovered, just to give it a little more color. Here it is after I baked it for that additional 5 minutes, and I think that it looks beautiful. It smells so good and has a great crust on it. I'm gonna wrap it in a clean dishcloth and let it dry completely before I put it in an airtight container. If I put it in a container before it dries completely, it will trap in moisture and that will not be a good thing. For lunch on days 1 through 3, I'm making cream of celery soup, and I'll be serving it with a grilled cheese and ham sandwich using the fresh bread that I made. I'm starting off by melting 2 tablespoons of margarine in my Dutch oven. Then I'm adding a heaping cup of frozen chopped onions. Then I'm adding in all of my diced celery. Then 2 cloves of garlic or 1 teaspoon of minced garlic. Now I'm adding in 4 cups of chicken broth along with 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I brought the soup up to a boil, turned down the heat to low, and covered it for 15 minutes. After the 15 minutes, I removed it from the heat and let it cool down for a few minutes. Now I'm going to blend up half of the soup to give it a creamier texture. Then I returned the blended soup back into the Dutch oven and added 1/3 cup of heavy whipping cream, along with some pepper. While the soup was simmering, I prepared the sandwiches. I buttered the bread and added cheese to each piece of bread. I'm putting ham in the middle of these sandwiches. That package has 8 slices of ham and I cut them in half, which means that each sandwich will have 3 half slices on 2 days and only 2 on the last day. I'm grilling these in a pan on my stovetop like a regular grilled cheese sandwich. These sandwiches were definitely the star of the show. I love a good grilled cheese sandwich, and these turned out perfectly. And the cream of celery soup turned out great as well. Celery is a vegetable with a lot of flavor. For lunch on days 4 through 7, we're going to have loaded baked potatoes with the fixings you see here and a side of broccoli. This bag has 4 1-cup servings, so each person can have a cup a day since I purchased 2 bags. And these bacon pieces are already cooked. This is 2 slices of bacon. Here is lunch on days 1 through 4, loaded baked potatoes with broccoli. And I just put a little bit of salt on the broccoli, and you can see what I put on the potatoes. For dinner tonight, I'm going to be making homemade gnocchi with a creamy tomato sauce and a small side salad. I washed my potatoes. Now I'm going to poke some holes in them and stick them in a 375-degree oven for an hour. While the potatoes are cooking, I'm going to make the sauce. I put a little bit of olive oil in this Dutch oven and I'm going to turn it on to medium-low heat. Now I'm going to add in half a cup of those frozen onions. I'm also adding in a teaspoon of minced garlic. Now that the onions are starting to look translucent, I'm going to add in my tomato sauce and my crushed tomatoes. Now I'm going to add in a teaspoon of Italian seasoning and a teaspoon of dried basil, half a teaspoon of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, and black pepper to taste. I'm going to turn it on low after I add the pepper. I just tasted it and I think it needs more salt, so I'm going to add some more salt. I just put water on to boil for the gnocchi, even though the potatoes aren't done yet. I just pulled my potatoes out of the oven and they're still hot. Most recipes will tell you to put your potatoes through a potato ricer. I don't have one of those. I'm sure you probably don't either. So I'm going to use this tool instead. I'm going to cut them open and then press them through using a spoon. I finished with those potatoes and you can see that the texture is different than if you were just mashing them. I made a little mound in the potatoes and now I'm going to put my egg on top. I lightly scrambled them and now I'm going to put them in the potatoes. Now I'm going to add in my flour. I'm going to start off with 1 cup. Oof, it came out. Came out pretty quickly. I'm going to work the dough together with this tool. I accidentally ended up filming this section in slow-mo, so that's why it looks funny. I cut the dough into 4 pieces and then rolled them out into these snakes, which I cut into inch-long sections. I rolled those sections over this fork to create a pattern. And here they are after I formed them all. You can definitely tell that these are homemade. They are not uniform at all. I cut a few of them a little bit too big at first. I'm going to put some of these in the freezer, and once they freeze, I'll put them in little plastic bags. As for the rest of the gnocchi, I'm going to cook them tonight. I took some of the sauce out of the Dutch oven and put it into a new pan. I'm going to add a few ingredients, adding in half a cup of heavy whipping cream, along with half of a cup of Parmesan cheese. I'm just cooking this on low while my gnocchi cooks. I added my gnocchi to the boiling water. It will boil for about 3 minutes. The gnocchi have started rising to the top, so I know that I have just a minute left to boil them. This is dinner on night 1, gnocchi along with a small side salad, and I cut up some fresh basil and put that on top along with Parmesan cheese. This was definitely my favorite meal of this challenge, and my husband agreed. He loved the sauce, and I love the fresh basil on top. You can use whatever salad dressing you have on hand for the side salad. I'm just going to use some of this Olive Garden dressing. This is the rest of the gnocchi. I'm going to stick it back in the freezer until tomorrow and cook it frozen. There's no need to defrost it. I'm going to put this sauce in the freezer and save it for later on in the week, but this sauce I'll put in the fridge and use it tomorrow. This is dinner on night 2, gnocchi along with some boiled carrots. I flavored the carrots with margarine and salt. I also have some of that bread that I made and spread a little bit of margarine on that. I'm gonna use 2 of these loaves of bread for dinner tonight. So I'm gonna take them out, put them on this parchment paper on the counter, and then cover them with a dish towel and let them rest for an hour and a half before I put them in the oven. My bread has been resting on the counter for over an hour and a half. And as you can tell, it has risen. When you look on these lines, you can tell that it's definitely risen. I'm gonna stick this in my Dutch oven that I've preheated in my 450-degree oven, and I will bake this the same way that I did the previous bread. I just pulled the bread out of the oven, and look at how cute they are. I'm gonna turn these into little bread bowls. For dinners on nights 3 through 5, I'm going to be using these ingredients to make potato soup. I always like to prep before I start my cooking process because it just makes everything go more smoothly. So I washed, peeled, and cut up my potatoes. I washed my celery and carrots and cut them up. And I measured out a cup of frozen onions. The other thing that I did was I used my kitchen scissors to cut up 6 pieces of bacon. I've noticed that it's a lot easier to use kitchen scissors to cut up bacon than a knife, and I'll just stick these in my dishwasher. The first thing that I'm doing is cooking my bacon in my trusty Dutch oven. When my mom first gave this to me, I did not think I would use it, but I use it all the time now. This bacon is starting to look crispy, so I'm gonna remove the bacon and I'm gonna drain the grease off, but I'm not going to clean the pan. I'm just gonna leave a little bit in there to cook my vegetables in. I just put these on a paper towel to drain the excess grease, and I'm gonna top the soup with these little bacon bits. You can see that I haven't cleaned my Dutch oven and there's a little bit of grease on the bottom. I'm gonna add in my frozen onions along with the carrots and celery. It's been a couple of minutes and the onions are starting to look translucent, so I'm gonna add in my potatoes now. Now I'm adding in half a teaspoon of the Creole mix, half a teaspoon of salt, I'll probably add more later, and some black pepper. Now I'm adding in 6 cups of broth. I'm gonna let this cook until the potatoes are tender. I'll check back in about 10 minutes. The other thing that I'm doing while the potatoes are cooking is whisking together 1 cup of milk with 3 tablespoons of flour. Now I'm gonna add in my milk and flour mixture and let this cook for about 5 more minutes. Now I'm gonna take about half of the soup and spoon it into my blender. I'm gonna blend it up and then return it to the soup. Now I'm gonna return it back into the soup. Now I'm adding in half a cup of heavy whipping cream, and I'm gonna taste it after I stir it up to see if it needs any more salt and pepper. This is dinner for nights 3 through 5, although on the next 2 nights, we're just gonna have bread on the side instead of bread bowls. I top them off with a little bit of shredded cheddar cheese and crispy bacon. These look delicious and I am so excited to eat dinner. Everything about this meal turned out well and I felt like I was eating at Panera. Dinner on nights 4 and 5 is the same as night 3, except for instead of a bread bowl, we're just gonna have a slice of bread on the side. For nights 6 and 7, I'm going to be making homemade pizza for dinner. I pulled some of that pasta sauce that I made the other night out of the freezer, and I'm gonna use that as well as the ingredients that you see here. I'm gonna start off by making the dough, and for that, I'm gonna use some warm water between 100 and 110 degrees. To that, I'm gonna add my yeast. I'm just gonna use 1 packet of yeast. Then I'm gonna add in 1 tablespoon of sugar. I'm just gonna whisk it together real fast. Then I'm gonna cover it and let it sit for 5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes and now I'm going to add in the other ingredients. Starting off with 2 tablespoons of olive oil, along with 1 teaspoon of salt, and 3.5 cups of flour. I already pre-measured my flour into this bowl. Instead of kneading the dough by hand, I put it in my stand mixer on the low setting. Now I have a nice ball of dough, and I'm just gonna put a little bit of oil on the sides of this bowl. And then I'm gonna cover it and let it rise. It's been over an hour and a half, and the dough has risen to, I think, double its size at least, probably more than that. Now I'm gonna divide this dough in half and set aside this other piece for tomorrow. Now that I have my dough rolled out, I'm gonna transfer it to this greased pizza pan. Now that I have the pizza dough on the pan, I'm gonna add my pizza sauce, or my pasta sauce, to the pizza and just spread it out, covering the entire thing except for the crust. And I realized I forgot to make my crust, so I'm gonna do that now before I finish adding the rest of the ingredients. Add the sauce to the pizza according to your liking. If you like a lot of sauce, add a lot. If you don't like a lot, then don't add a lot. Now I'm gonna put on my cheese. So I have this bag of shredded mozzarella cheese, and it is 4 cups, and I'm gonna use half of this bag. I also have some of the Parmesan cheese. The Parmesan cheese that I had was shredded, and so I put it in my food processor and made it grated. And the last step is adding Italian seasoning. I preheated my oven to 475 degrees, and I'm gonna stick this in there for 15 minutes. The other half of the dough I'm sticking in the fridge, and I'll pull it out when I use it tomorrow. Here is dinner on night 6 and 7. I cut up some of my fresh basil to top this pizza. This pizza was delicious. I like pizza to have light sauce and lots of cheese, so that's how I made it, and I really enjoyed it. The next night, I rolled out the dough a little bit thinner, and I remembered to brush olive oil over the dough before adding any of the toppings, and I think that improved the pizza. At the end of the challenge, I always show you what food I have remaining from the food that I've purchased for the challenge. And for this one, I have a little bit of cheese. I have maybe like 1/3 of a cup of heavy whipping cream. I would have more milk left, but my toddler did drink some of the milk. I have a little bit of margarine, some potatoes, some carrots. Honestly, I probably should have just cooked the rest of those carrots when I was making them the other night. Sour cream, this much. The Parmesan cheese, barely any. And as far as the flour, I weighed it, and it weighed a little over 4 pounds, because I was wondering if maybe I should have gotten a 5-pound bag instead, but it looks like I did need that 10-pound bag. I can make several things from these leftovers. For one thing, I can make mashed potatoes, and then the next day I could take those mashed potatoes and use the flour and make potato pancakes. I don't know if you've ever done that before. My granny used to do it, and I always loved it. I think all of the meals that I made this week turned out really well, but I do have to admit that I do not want to see potatoes again for a while. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you enjoy this type of extreme grocery budget challenge video, I've done several of them in the past, and I will leave a link to a playlist of them in my description box below. I'm also leaving links to the recipes that I used this week. None of them are exactly what I've done, but most of them are pretty close. Thank you so much for watching this video. Leave me a comment below letting me know what type of budget challenge you're interested in seeing in the future. Check out my Instagram and TikTok. They are both @AmyWayToSave.